The sun dipped low over the barren landscape of Vera 3, casting long shadows across the metallic ridges that jutted from the planet's surface. Human explorers had come here seeking minerals, knowledge, and occasionally trouble. Few had anticipated that the trouble would come in the form of an alien warrior, tall and lithe, with skin that shimmered like polished bronze and eyes that reflected a calculating intelligence. The human in question, Daniel, had landed his exploration pod near the northern ridge, unaware that he was being observed. His mission had been routine, cataloging rare minerals and soil samples, but as he adjusted the pod's scanner, a sudden shadow fell across the landscape. "Who's there?" Daniel called, his voice steady but cautious. The wind carried no response, only the rustle of the planet's thin atmosphere. Then she appeared. A figure, moving with a grace that seemed almost liquid, stepped onto a ridge above him. Her armor caught the last rays of sunlight, scattering them in a prism of colors. This was the warrior who had challenged humans before, one whose victories were spoken of in whispers across spacefaring colonies. "I am Lyra," she said, her voice melodic but firm. "I challenge you to a duel." Daniel froze for a heartbeat. He had trained for hostile encounters, for conflicts with alien species, but nothing had prepared him for the presence of someone who seemed not just powerful, but utterly confident in her dominance. "A duel," he repeated. "Why challenge me?" Lyra's eyes glinted. "Curiosity. I have faced many warriors, but few of your kind. I wish to see if humans possess the strength and skill to rival my own." Daniel felt the weight of her gaze. It was not just a challenge. It was a test, a probe into the very essence of humanity. He knew that refusing would be seen as cowardice, but accepting meant risking everything. "I accept," he said finally, his voice steady despite the rapid beating of his heart. They moved to an open plateau, the ground scarred by ancient impacts and crystalline outcrops. Lyra raised her weapon, a curved energy blade that pulsed with a cold blue light. Daniel adjusted his own gear, a combination of reinforced exosuit and plasma sidearm, relying on technology to compensate for what he knew would be a test of physical and mental endurance. The duel began. Lyra moved first, a blur of motion, her blade tracing arcs in the air that left faint streaks of light. Daniel dodged, countered, but she seemed always a step ahead. He realized quickly that brute strength alone would not win this fight. He needed to anticipate, to outthink, to exploit any opening. Minutes passed like hours. Daniel felt the strain in his muscles, the sting of small cuts from the energy blade, the burn of exertion. Yet with each exchange, he learned more about her rhythm, her style, the way she adapted to his movements. Humans were resilient, and his mind raced, calculating angles, distances, and opportunities with an intensity that matched her skill. Lyra's expression remained unreadable, but Daniel sensed a flicker of surprise when he sidestepped a strike and countered with a maneuver that forced her to retreat. The human mind was unpredictable, fluid, and it fascinated her. "You are not like others," she admitted, breathing slightly heavier now. "Most would have fallen by now." Daniel allowed himself a brief nod. "I am human," he said simply. "We adapt." That word, simple as it was, seemed to strike her in a way that nothing else had. Humans had a reputation among alien species for being fragile, for relying on machines and technology rather than innate strength. Yet here was one, standing and responding, challenging not just her skill but her assumptions. Hours passed. The sun disappeared below the horizon, leaving the plateau bathed in the eerie glow of the planet's twin moons. They were locked in a dance of blades, of strategy, of patience and intuition. Daniel's stamina waned, but he relied on his wits, feints, and understanding of Lyra's patterns. Then came the turning point. Daniel noticed the subtle shift in her stance, a slight overextension of her right arm, a microsecond of imbalance. In that instant, he made a calculated risk. Using a combination of momentum and precise timing, he parried her next strike and swept her weapon aside with a controlled motion that forced her to her knees. For a moment, silence reigned. The only sound was the hum of energy from Lyra's blade and the wind across the plateau. She looked up at him, and Daniel saw something he had not expected: admiration. "You have bested me," she said, her voice calm but filled with respect. "I underestimated humans." Daniel lowered his weapon, offering his hand. It was never about underestimating. It was about understanding. Lyra accepted his gesture, rising to her feet. The duel was over, but the connection formed in that combat endured. She studied him closely, as if cataloging every detail of his movement, his decisions, his resilience. "You have shown qualities that few in the galaxy possess," she said. "Strength, yes, but more importantly, courage, intelligence, and adaptability." Daniel shrugged modestly. "Humans survive, we learn. We find a way." Lyra's eyes softened. She had faced warriors stronger than any human, yet there was something unique in his presence, a spark that defied expectation. "Your species is more formidable than I imagined," she admitted. "I challenged you expecting a lesson for you, but I have learned as well." They returned to the edge of the plateau, the stars beginning to pierce the darkness above. Daniel felt a mixture of relief and exhilaration. He had faced an alien warrior whose skill was legendary, and he had survived, not through sheer force, but through intellect, adaptability, and persistence. In the following days, Lyra and Daniel traveled together across Vera 3. She taught him aspects of her fighting techniques, not as a teacher to a pupil, but as one warrior to another. Daniel shared human ingenuity, strategies, and methods that relied on creativity rather than sheer strength. They tested each other, laughed when mistakes were made, and slowly a bond formed between them. The duel had been more than a contest. It had become a bridge between species. Lyra realized that humans possessed qualities that no alien warrior could easily quantify: resilience in the face of adversity, ingenuity when resources were limited, and an unwavering determination that could turn even the direst situation into an opportunity. News of the duel spread quickly through the human colonies and to other alien civilizations. Messages arrived, curious and incredulous, about the human who had challenged a renowned alien warrior and survived. Daniel did not boast of victory. Instead, he emphasized the lessons learned and the respect earned. Lyra continued to visit human outposts, sometimes challenging other humans, sometimes observing from afar, always intrigued by the species that had surprised her. She had expected to dominate, to teach, to show superiority. Yet she found herself learning, adapting, and most unexpectedly, respecting. Months later, when Daniel returned to Earth, he was greeted not as a hero in the traditional sense, but as a representative of human resilience. Scientists, soldiers, and explorers listened intently to his account of the duel, of Lyra, and of the qualities that made humans exceptional. "We survived because we adapt," he told them. "We survive because we think, because we cooperate, and because we refuse to give up. Strength alone is not enough. The mind and heart must guide it." Lyra watched from the observation platform above the city, unseen by most. She had come not as a conqueror but as a witness, and she marveled at the tenacity of a species that could challenge expectations on so many levels. The galaxy began to take notice. Humans were no longer just a curious species on a distant planet. They were recognized for their unique combination of intelligence, courage, and adaptability. Stories of the duel spread as cautionary tales and inspiring legends, showing that underestimating a human was a mistake no alien should make. Years later, Daniel would reflect on that day, not with pride alone but with understanding. The duel had been more than a fight. It had been a revelation. Humanity had proven itself not by sheer force, not by technology alone, but by its indomitable spirit. Lyra remained an ally, sometimes a sparring partner, sometimes a teacher, but always a witness to what humans could achieve when challenged. In the end, the outcome stunned her because it defied her expectations. She had assumed dominance, yet she discovered equality and perhaps a glimpse of the human potential that would shape the galaxy for generations. And Daniel understood that the true victory was not in the duel itself, but in the awakening it sparked, a recognition that humans, when faced with challenges beyond their understanding, would rise, adapt, and endure in ways that even the most skilled alien warrior could not anticipate. The story of the duel became legend, not for the spectacle of combat, but for what it revealed about humanity, that even against the strongest and most skilled of alien warriors, humans could survive, adapt, and triumph, often in ways that stunned those who thought they understood the limits of their strength. It was not merely a victory of one human over another species. It was a triumph of human spirit over doubt, fear, and expectation. And across the stars, the reputation of humanity grew, fueled by courage, intelligence, and the unshakable belief that no challenge was beyond their capacity to meet and overcome.